I'd like to talk to you today about the Kinera Imperial Verdandi. These are the ones in the blue, and they are stunning, absolutely gorgeous. Now, this was a loaner set from a purchase from Canucks Audioholics. So again, thanking the boys for the share. So now it came with the stock Flash Acoustics cable in 4.4, and it does come with a modular end. It did? Does it? I thought it did. If it does, I don't know how it comes apart. I thought it was a modular end. Pretty sure it is. Weird. Oh, yes. Yes, it is. That's what I remembered I didn't like about this cable, is it comes apart too easily for me. Anyway, now that I figured it out, it is simply a gorgeous cable as well, and a kind of a SPC cable. Now, talking about the IMs for a second, they are on the large side, and the nozzles come straight down. There's no lip on it, which is weird, and I have found in a few instances where my tips have stayed in my ear. So I wasn't a big fan of that per se. I'll just leave that tip off then. Fine, be that way. Now, this is a 4 kinds of driver hybrid. Just go back a second, right? Talk about its size. This is the XENNS mangered up, and literally half its size. So it's large. Now, back to the Verdandi. I'm calling this one V for Verdandi. 7mm dynamic driver, and there's lots of room in that shell. Not to hound on this thing, but I think they could have made this shell a lot smaller. And unless there's some reason that I don't know, but it looks like there's a whole lot of real estate in there that could be filled. Anyway, there's also 2 balanced armatures, 2 EST drivers, and 1 bone conduction driver. So not really a lot of high driver count. There's 5 drivers with a very large shell. Overall sound signature, to start off with, is a very big B. Now, let's talk about my journey. So when I first put these things in, I was listening to it on the first couple tracks, and I sent a message over to Kevin, and I said, Kevin, I gotta own these. I think they're awesome. And then the honeymoon stage wore off, because then I started really listening to it instead of not listening to it. Okay. So how do they sound? Well, they sound like they graph. So here is a graph I will pull up. And as you can see, there is a large bass shelf, and it dips down quite a bit. And then it has a fairly substantial pinna rise. And it starts pretty early, like around 600 hertz, and climbs up. And it kind of peaks off around 2.5K, which is the kind of the ear gain pinnacle. So, and then it kind of really levels off, kind of slopes down a little bit to where you get to about 4K, and then it really does a kind of a pretty big waterfall, well below the bass shelf and well below the mids. So, and not a terrible amount of extension really after that, or if it is, there isn't on the graph. And later in this video, I'll compare it to one of my favorite sets that's tuned somewhat similarly, in the upper mids, and that is the Soundrhyme DTE 900. And then I'm also going to talk about my absolute favorite set, the XENNS Up. And I'm even going to throw in a cheapie set in there, the Pula PAO2s that I really like. So 4 sets in here, but let's really start talking about the Verdandi. So initial honeymoon stage, it is the fun factor. It is the wow. It is like, wow, do these things come out clear? Wow, do vocals really pop out? And there is going to be some of you that will absolutely fall in love with this set and stay in love. Where I was in lust and then not. It was a one night stand. That's terrible, but true. I would say, and so you got to know that, like the DTE 900, they are mid forward and they're upper mids forward. And it's, for me, it's too much. It's too much information. And but we'll get back into that more about the sound. So let's talk about the other driver. Well, there's two, which is a very odd for me in this IM. If there's 2 ESTs going on, what are they doing? Like ESTs, for me, what they're supposed to do, as far as I understand, is add some upper zing cymbals crashes. Well, if I look at my little chart back there, where does that go? Well, synthesizers, in anything, even violin ends at kind of like 3,500, so it's not that, right? I mean, but the sizzle in cymbal strikes and drums and snares are all into that upper 5-6K. And that's where I think the EST drivers really do a great job, just adding a little bit of extra sizzle to the top end, where the Verdandi really drops off. So if there's the ESTs, well, there is ESTs in there, but what are they doing? Or could they have been tuned to add more? So the other one, that implementation, so this set is also up there. I mean, it's $1,200 USD, right? So that's 16 something hundred Canadian. It's a chunk of change. The bone conduction driver. Now, and see, these are very large shells, and again, in order to get that bone conduction driver, and in this case, it's said to help implement with the bass. And up until my 5th, 6th listening session, I didn't hear it, and it wasn't until I put these Divinus Velvet tips on, where they're a little smaller and a little bit harder. Whatever you call it. I didn't get that effect. And then when I finally did, and I shoved him in as deep as I could, and I used a slightly smaller tip, I finally heard the bone conduction driver, and it does add some reverberation to the bass that is quite lovely. But a lot of that sometimes is overshadowed by that massive amount of upper mid information for me. So again, it makes it the Verdandi, a very exciting IM, a very energetic IM. It makes it a very colored IM. And I don't mind a coloration in an IM. I'm not a neutral head, that's for sure. But for me, even though the fun factor is definitely an overdrive, I can get about 3 songs in before it gets fatiguing for me. And then I start critically listening to these tracks, and where I find, and this is kind of where I found not to my taste, because though I did love the very fast 7mm dynamic bass and the bone conduction driver bass in there, the overwhelming amount of upper mids, and that it is just too much information for me, for my brain. Now, in this journey, I also tried it with some impedance adapters, and I can pull up a graph of how that changes. Now, basically what happens with an impedance adapter, some IMs don't change at all. With the Verdandi, it's massive difference. So the bass shelf goes up, and even though on the top end it doesn't look like there's so much change in the upper mids and the top end, it really does affect it. So even with a 25 ohm impedance adapter and or the i-fi IE match, what happened was the bass kind of went up, and it took all the edge off the upper mids and the top end, but it also kind of dulled it quite a bit. So it wasn't like a aha moment. You need this impedance adapter to fix something that you don't like. It was like, yeah, it fixed some things, but killed other things, and it took away the excitement that there was no happy medium. It was either 110% or 40% fun factor. So there wasn't like, oh, well, you should definitely pick this set up and buy an impedance adapter, and it will be the wonder cure of all and make this IM uber spectacular, and that wasn't the case. So again, there is biases, of course. For me, what I like, as I say that I like the XENNS Mangered Up the best out of all the sets that I owned. And I'll show you a graph of also the Sound Rhyme, the Mangered Up, and the Verdandi. Now, the difference between if you have a DTE 900, because people are going to look at the graph of the DTE 900 and they're going to look at the Verdandi and go, that's pretty similar, except for the DTE 900 has more mid bass, which you can hear, and it has just a slight more upper mids, but the extension and treble is completely different on the two. The Verdandi is not a detail beast, because that upper mids kind of drowns out everything else. And the difference between a Sound Rhyme DTE 900 and the Verdandi was that extra mid bass also helps offset some of the upper mids. So it adds also the heft in male vocals, where that was the one thing that killed the set for me, is male vocals sound very thin. And again, but if you're a female vocal listener, you will love this set because it really specializes in that extra chi-fi female poison kind of tuning. So, and the instrumental, that's the other part. I was listening to some Tina Gao with some violin, and I was listening to that, and I was back and forth with these four sets, just trying to figure out what I was hearing. And though violin has the energy up top, because I think the lack of treble extension on the Verdandi, the violins didn't sound correct, nor did they have enough heft at the bottom end for other string instruments like the cello or bass guitar, or it's missing some of that note information down below, or it is simply being masked out by the upper mids and that energy. So listening in comparison, right, to the DTE 900, the DTE 900 sounded more correct. Violins sounded more correct, and piano sounds more correct. Male vocals sound more correct. they sounded right to me from the Mangard XENNS up. XENNS Mangard? Up. XENNS, Mangard XENNS? Yeah. And so then part of me enjoying a set is also the correct tone and the correct tonality of not just vocals but instrumental, right? And again, this all plays down into preferences, what you like. Some people like, and I don't mind non-energetic sets. I just came off of the EPZ Q1, and it also has lots of energy and upper mids, but it just is a $50 IM that for me I get more enjoyment out of than a $1,600 IM, and that also comes down to preferences. So very much so. Instrumental, you'll get washed out because of, and again, if you don't care about that, if that's not your thing and you just want a fun, energetic, mid-centric vocal set, the Verdandi might be your top of the game. It might blow your mind and stay there. If you are looking for more of correctness, if you're looking for something more balanced, the Verdandi is not for you. And that has to do with, I love bass, and I love, but I love correctness, and correctness comes apart in the bass. So the bass has to have not just volume, it has to have detail, it has to have decay. When you hit a drum, you have to hear the drum skin, the resonance of it. And then again, when the second hit comes, I want to hear a little bit of the overlap. But I don't want too much where it's drony. I want it to be faster and snappier. And that, the up does it for me, absolutely, in all the ways. And the DTE 900 with that extra mid bass in there sometimes adds a little bit of bloat to vocals as well. It's a more colored IM, but it also has more extension in the treble department to balance things out versus the Verdandi. So it's different colorations, different tunings, right? That's a good way to describe different sets. And I'm not going to do track impressions with the Verdandi because they all sounded to me like that. I mean, it's super exciting to listen to. Like, it really is making you take notice, stand up and take notice of what's happening into the upper mids. And you get the solid thumpy bass and the bone conduction doing its thing. So it's great for that. But for chill sessions, listening to, I'm a big jazz fan too. And the instruments, the piano needs to sound natural. The double bass needs to sound natural. And if I'm listening to Ella Fitzgerald, her vocals needs to sound good. Louis Armstrong sounds like somebody was, right? Yeah, it wasn't Louis. It was Louette. And that was a big turnoff for me. So that is my overall take of the Kinera Imperial Verdandi. And so here's the takeaway for you. If you're thinking about picking up this set, just know Super V, super mid forward, upper mids have a lot of information, super colored, in a way that's going to make female vocals absolutely pop. Don't expect instrumental to sound correct. If you're too critical on that, you're not going to like this I Am as well. And if that is kind of your preference and that's what you like, honestly, good luck on finding another set that's going to do it this well, this clean, that kind of presentation. I think it's at top of its game for that kind of sound signature. If you like a more balanced sound and you like more treble and extension without sibilance or harshness, and you prioritize instrument tonality and technicalities, the Verdandi is not for you. That's really, in a nutshell, the Squirrel's take. This is the Tone Deaf Monk. Out for now. Thank you.